Today, I teach the Dhamma, which is the essence of Buddhism. It concerns our minds, imparting wisdom to them. When our minds possess this wisdom, they will naturally awaken. They will perceive the truth. They will understand that mental formations are anatta, no self. This indicates that the voice speaking, the mental image thinking, the emotion currently arising, and even the signs being perceived, all lack a self. They are merely manifestations of nature that appear, exist, and vanish based on their own causes and conditions. It is like water in the ocean. Water is its inherent nature. When factors influence the water, it creates ripples. All these ripples are a fabrication. They are the ripples of water. They are the actions of water. It is a natural occurrence arising from their causes and conditions. It exists and vanishes according to its causes and conditions. It is just like that. It does not truly exist. Only water genuinely exists. When we catch waves, what we obtain is merely water. We will never find waves. Similarly, mental formations are actions of the mind. They do not truly exist. They are simply the movements of the mind. When our minds awaken to this truth, it signifies that while we are speaking, the voice I use does not exist. During our conversation, our minds recognize that we are speaking. We do not need to practice mindfulness. Our mind is the essence of knowing. It recognizes this sound by its very nature. It resembles a body of water that perceives the waves. The waves are merely the body of water that ripples. The waves can be strong or gentle. The body of water will always be aware. There is no need to do or train anything. This thought being discussed is a phenomenon, a movement of the mind. It is this sound. The mind is constantly aware of this sound. It won't benefit you to know in time, or it won't help you to know in time, because this voice emerged on its own. Like the wind that blows by and then dissipates according to its own causes and conditions. The question is, where are we? We don't need to think about it or use our brains to find the answer. When our minds embrace this truth, they will instantly be liberated from ignorance. The minds will no longer be foolishly bound to mental formations. Buddhahood will emerge. It will manifest as a sensation called trembling, with goosebumps covering the body. Tears will flow freely, unceasingly. It will be a moment filled with joy and fullness. It is profoundly felt, yet I struggle to convey it to humans, as nature is devoid of assumptions. When the mind is liberated from mental formations, a tremor occurs, tears flow, and the mind becomes bright, clear, and light. For some individuals, a vision of the body disintegrating into dust may appear. My own mind has shattered into dust. The world has crumbled into dust, leaving nothing behind. It transforms into emptiness, pure, merging with all things. Whether knowledge exists or not, this reflects the essence of the mind's understanding. The mind has attained enlightenment. Thus, Dharma is merely a matter of listening to comprehend and aligning with the mind. This is known as transmission from mind to mind. It does not depend on anything. It is simply a ripple from our mind to our mind. We can now simply observe that the sound of the mind is emitted and affects our minds. Let's focus our feelings on my voice. We will notice that this sound resonates in the center of our minds. Our minds are aware of this sound. If we delve deeply into our thoughts, we will realize that this sound lacks form. It represents a kind of essence that emerges for the mind to perceive. The sound does not possess a self or form in its manifestation. It is merely an essence that the mind recognizes independently. This sound arises within the depths of the mind itself. We simply observe and understand it within our own consciousness. Look, Where is the evidence of understanding others? If we observe closely, we will see only emptiness and purity, accompanied by certain signs that fulfill their purpose. These signs possess no language to communicate. They represent liberation and transcend convention. They cannot be articulated in any language. They know it inherently. It is essential to explain this clearly so that we can listen and follow along. It is a ripple of pure emptiness. This ripple flows outward. Our mind is pure emptiness at its core. It has no form, merging with all things. It is very pure. It can be referred to as the Dharma element, the Nirvana element, the emptiness element, the origin element of all compound elements, the immortal element, the zero element, or our original mind. We already possess this nature. It neither arrives nor departs. It is neither born nor perishes. It is neither dark nor light. It holds no merit or sin, good or bad. It simply exists, pure and untainted. This nature is characterized by ignorance, signifying a desire to learn. For it to learn, it must establish a materiality of perception. Due to this nature, it lacks form, resembling the pure emptiness through which everything passes, akin to the pure emptiness before us. If an atomic bomb were detonated here, this clear emptiness remains unaffected by the explosion. Regardless of whether the wind is strong or weak, blowing past, this clear emptiness remains indifferent to it. If darkness enters this clear emptiness and everything turns dark, this clear emptiness remains untouched by the darkness. Even the light that filtered through this clear emptiness had no connection to it. It is a pure element, neutral and intertwined with everything. Let's consider that all compounded elements, whether they are name elements or form elements, will manifest in this clear emptiness, exist, and dissolve in various forms. Both name and form elements are governed by the law of nature, meaning they appear and dissolve, each having its own existence. This is nature as it is. It is unrelated to pure emptiness. Can we grasp this? Our mind is pure emptiness. Name and form emerge from the pure emptiness of our mind. The sounds I speak, the mental images conjured, and the emotions that arise, be they joyful, sorrowful, indifferent, or serene, are merely phenomena that emerge from pure emptiness and subsequently fade away. They manifest due to certain conditions and vanish when those conditions cease. In studying and practicing Dharma, we need not do anything at all. We simply must listen, understand, and follow the teachings, just as the Buddha instructed during his time. He taught for all of us to hear. We simply follow the mind and seek to understand it. When the mind accepts knowledge and perceives the truth that this voice is speaking, this mental image, emotion, and feeling, it operates independently. It emerges on its own. It fades away on its own. There is no us in these natures at all. So what are we lost in? The mind generates this knowledge, clear through the essence of the mind itself. Buddhahood suddenly illuminates brightly. Tears fall. Why do tears fall? Because it has lost what it has clung to for so long. It clung to the belief that this is its body. When it recognized the truth that this is not its body, tears flowed. This voice that speaks has depended on it all along. When it becomes evident that this voice does not truly exist, it merely signifies emptiness, perpetually rippling, not us, not us, not ourself. The mind becomes aware of what has deluded us. Tears flow. It has lost what it has depended on for so long due to ignorance. The mental images it conjures, which it has relied on for so long, are akin to this voice, deluded and dependent as well. All emotions, whether joyful, sorrowful, or neutral, are the same. They arise in response to conditions and then vanish when those conditions cease. Emotions emerge or fade on their own. offering no benefits or harm to anyone. It is nature that exists, not us at all. When our minds become enlightened to this truth, they release what they have clung to and depended on for so long. Tears flow. This is the knowledge that penetrates the mind. The essence of knowing remains. The mind perceives that what it knows now is akin to the sound we are hearing now. By observing our mind, we will see that our mind recognizes this sound by the nature of the mind itself. Where are we? When the mind becomes enlightened and understands with clarity, tears will flow. Complete Buddhahood will manifest. The mind will be bright, clear, and empty. Having been freed from the five aggregates, it has relied on the five aggregates, on material and mental phenomena, on this body and this mind, for a long time. Now I clearly understand that my own nature is pure and empty, a fundamental essence that exists prior to all things, an immortal essence, a pristine element that has been misled and clings to illusory phenomena known as ignorance, conditions, and sankaras. I simply don't know, that's all. I'm just foolish and depend on fabrication, that's all. Our minds have been trapped in the cycle of mental formations for a long time, ensnared in good or bad destinations, taking various forms based on what we think and cling to. This fabrication is utterly foolish. Tears flow. The mind recognizes its own nature. All that I have said is an imaginary language. This spoken sound does not truly exist. It is merely a transmission from mind to mind. When our minds listen and follow along, and clear knowledge arises, we will realize that practicing Dharma only leads to loss. We lose our sense of self, belonging, significance, and determination that we once clung to. We lose all the knowledge we used to know and understand. We have lost the cycle that has persisted for a long time. There is nothing left to preserve. Empty, pure, without the need for preservation. It has always existed. It was never born. It never died. It never went or came. It is a pure element of nature that we all already possess. And this knowledge is referred to as Buddhahood, which will emerge in the minds of those who understand the principles of Dharma, those who are enlightened by wisdom. Wisdom does not stem from thoughts, memory, or the brain. Rather, it is a quality of the mind that has come to recognize mental formations and has liberated itself from them. It is no longer foolishly attached to these formations and is entirely free from them. The sound I am expressing is a mental formation, yet the mind is not engaged at all. These mental images, the emotions that arise, the signs that are perceived, these are all fabricated natures. It is now acting out its own actions without an owner. The mind is free. It does not need to create, maintain, or do anything to obtain anything. It does not seek to reach it because this nature is already present for us. This nature is an element of life. Must we create the elements of life? Must we practice to obtain this element of life? Must we refine this element of life? We will see that this element of life already exists. Let us not be foolishly attached to thoughts, sounds, imagination, emotions, perceptions, or even this understanding. Do not be foolishly attached to it. We simply allow these natures to emerge and fade away for their own reasons. We know the truth without knowing, thinking, or concluding. We listen to this apes frequently and follow along with our minds. The mind will gradually comprehend bit by bit in accordance with our wisdom. A wise man possessing great insight listens to the teachings for a few moments and effortlessly articulates the truth. This marks the conclusion of the Dharma. It is nothing. It is now perpetually revealing anatta. Does this sound imply that it is fulfilling its own responsibilities? It simply is this way without any discernible reason. Where are we? Let the mind respond. The essence of religion is simply this: the purity of the mind, which we all inherently possess. We don't need to create it or struggle to discover it. We merely have to cease our search. We have been seeking for a long time. We are all striving to uncover our own life element, to recognize the purity we already hold, to access the knowledge we inherently possess, all due to ignorance. When wise figures like Buddha imparted this truth to the world, those who listened attentively would grasp the Dharma simultaneously. Due to the Dharma proclaimed by all Buddhas, he speaks from the essence of truth, emanating the pure element of Dharma and radiating purity to all of us. When our minds embrace it, this radiance of purity is referred to as transmission from mind to mind. Our minds will recognize that Dharma is inherently pure when we bow in its presence. In human terms, it is described as looking into each other's eyes and understanding each other's hearts. We must awaken to our ignorance. It's important to understand them thoroughly. The TV screen is showing a story. It features a person named Little Ika. This is how his story unfolds. Little Ika grew up in a poor family. He constantly questioned, what was he born for? Yet, he never found the answer. He sought to learn what the world had to offer him. Eka's parents taught him to think, imagine, embellish, and strive for material things in this world. Eka could only ask himself, what exactly are we born for? Is this what we truly want? We sensed that it wasn't what we desired. Everything feels complete when you have love, a home, and clothes. Yet, the question of our purpose remains unanswered. Is that all we are searching for? This question has always lingered in little Eka's mind. Little Eka attended school. The teachers taught him how to think, remember, acquire knowledge, and strive for wealth, honor, praise, and happiness. Little Eka had many experiences throughout his life until he turned 25 years old. He still has questions to ponder in his mind. What exactly do we desire? Our current situation is satisfactory for our lives, yet there is an underlying feeling that it is not what we truly want. One day, little Eka experienced an accident. His heart stopped, and he fell into shock. In that moment, he understood that his life was fleeting. Despite being 25 years old and in good health, why couldn't he control his own body? Little Eka could only cry out in his heart, what am I going to do now? Is this all I have accomplished in my life? I haven't yet repaid my parents' kindness. Little Eka prayed that if he could recover from this condition, he would cultivate merit and perform good deeds to the fullest extent. If all the merits and virtues were genuine, let them be fulfilled by all the creditors and not by me. I will strive to carry out good deeds. May all the spirits and souls of our karmic creditors receive all the merit from now until our last breath. This is the truth that little Eka declared, even though he did not understand how merit was created, nor did he know what Buddhism truly was. After that, little Eka dedicated his life to practicing merit, accumulating a great deal of merit according to the principles of Buddhism. He began to study, learn, give alms, observe the precepts, and practice meditation. By the time he was 30 years old, little Eka had gained significantly more knowledge about Buddhism than he had before. He understood the purpose of his birth. The fantasy that had captivated him since childhood was his true calling. Recently, he realized that he was not an ordinary person by birth. He was destined to be ordained. Little Eka announced his intention to ordain for life, and he began to take the path to nirvana seriously. Little Eka observed everything in this world. He learned many methods of practice from his teachers. But at that time, He had not yet attained enlightenment through the Dharma. He could only proclaim the truth, and then follow the truth he had proclaimed. After his ordination, he began to understand his own mind. It didn't take long for him to realize that everything stemmed from his own thoughts. That day, a miracle happened for little Eka. The knowledge he had held throughout his life shattered in his mind. He recognized that all material things arose from this abstract concept. The mind of little Eka was bright and clear, fully recognizing it in his heart. After that, his focus was firmly set on awareness, observing his thoughts. He declared to his own mind, "Oh, fabricated thoughts, from now on, you and I must part ways. I will never let go of my thoughts. From waking to sleeping, I will see them all the time." This is the character of a warrior that little Eka has embraced in his heart. After that, Eka's mind remained constantly awake, perceiving fabricated thoughts until it evolved, becoming very wise and mindful, and experiencing many amazing and brilliant things. This continued for 7 days, spinning day and night. When the sentence-like thought was perceived, it transformed into a word, then into a more specific thought, and finally into a sign that trembled briefly before becoming more defined and then exploding. The world, the body, everything disintegrated. The world was engulfed in a brilliant light that was clear and pure, erasing any perception of its existence. That night, little Eka discovered the essence of enlightenment. This was characterized by profound mindfulness and wisdom. It was inherent. It understood and acknowledged itself. Little Eka paid little attention to what manifested. Since this nature had emerged and disappeared, little Eka permitted it to fulfill its role. The truth was unveiled by little Eka's contemplation the following day. Avijja Pakaya Sankhara was the reality that little Eka's mind proclaimed as he sat and received alms from the people. At that moment, little Eka's mind began to grasp the cycle of existence. The entire cycle became clear to him. Ignorance is the root of all thoughts wandering within this cycle. The mind proclaimed, "Sabbe Dhamma Anattati," meaning that all Dharma are anatta in the next moment. With this insight, little Eka attained pure Dharma and relinquished all other Dharma. Little Eka comprehended religion entirely. None of Dharma had ever been mentioned. It is merely a transmission from mind to mind. It was only a nature that faded over time, devoid of identity, belonging, and value. Immersed in this delusion, little Eka began to weep, feeling sorrow for all living beings. At the third moment, the mind proclaimed that there was no one in the 3 realms of the world whom we could not teach. It resonated throughout all 3 realms. This was knowledge that none of us had previously encountered. It is beyond our capacity to comprehend. Little Eka had a question in his 4th mind. How would he dismantle the form and formless? After contemplating this idea, little Eka concluded that the total disruption of the life cycle was merely meant to make him aware of the impersonal nature of the mind and its anatta, or non-self. He understood that annihilating the formless was no longer a daunting task. Another question arose. How should we begin? At that moment, the mind replied, "This understanding of causes and factors transcends human comprehension. It is the essence of the elements. It is a reverence for the nature of the elements. A reverence with all of one's heart. Knowing the Lord Buddha with one's entire heart. Understanding that this is Buddhahood, he had no doubts about anything." At the time of this declaration, little Eka perceived the entire future within his consciousness. That knowledge was devoid of language, free from fabrication. It was a pure and unparalleled element of nature. Following that, little Eka revered this Dharma with all his heart. The story of little Eka appeared on the television screen. There was someone watching TV. While watching, he observed little Eka live his life, learning and experiencing many things. The individual watching is also gazing outside the television. He is eating as well. He realizes that what he sees on TV is not real. It is merely a tale that unfolds on the screen. That is all. This is the knowledge I wish to convey. The essence of living beings is rooted in fabrication, concreteness, and abstraction. We exist within this body, in our minds, and through our thoughts. We think, remember, cling to, and experience both happiness and suffering using this constructed language. We assess everything by relying on this sound and body. We become ensnared in the cycle of physical and mental existence. We utilize the concrete to comprehend the abstract and the nature of things. When the wise man understands the nature of the components, he looks outward to perceive the elements of name and form. He realizes that neither the elements of form nor the elements of name truly exist. When gazing from the Dharma element, all that is seen is pure emptiness, devoid of fictional language and narratives, grasping everything yet clinging to nothing. Freedom exists without the need to create, without the struggle to find, and without doing anything to obtain anything. This understanding is the realization that when living beings listen with their thoughts, their minds become filled with wisdom, enabling them to swiftly acquire the Dharma. Such knowledge arises from within rather than from the brain. Human nature relies on logic and thought to comprehend everything, along with the principles of memory, reasoning, analysis, and distinction. It relies on fabrication to understand everything. This is the entity that depends on creation to grasp material objects and abstractions. Subsequently, it utilizes fabrication to comprehend the nature of things that are unconditioned and unfabricated. This forms the general knowledge of living beings. This kind of understanding will lead us to slow down, creating an endless cycle. Our unconditioned nature, or our mind, does not need assumptions to define itself. When we engage our body in practice with the expectation of gaining something, this constructed thought takes center stage. We think to ourselves, we'll practice in the forest for a while. We must wear white clothes, walk, sit, and recite mantras. All of this is a fabrication. This sends the mind outward. This leans on and becomes trapped in material and mental phenomena. All of this signifies ignorance, conditions, and sankhara. This is why we practitioners struggle to attain Dharma. The wise individual, upon reaching the Dharma element, which transcends creation, seeking, training, or knowledge of the Dharma element we already possess, realizes the pure emptiness that permeates all things. He perceives all of nature exactly as it is. He observes this thought, mental image, feeling, and perception. All are merely natural phenomena, like the wind, which arrives and departs according to its own causes and conditions, or the sun, darkness, and light, which come and go. Whether it is referred to as darkness or not, it remains the same. Whether it is termed light or not, it remains the same. It is what it is, whether it is a storm, tornado, typhoon, or something entirely different. The wise man does not create anything. He is entirely free from creation. He understood the truth through his natural element. His essence served the purpose of knowing in that manner. All signs emerged and faded away. They existed in that manner. In truth, the mind perceives everything, whether tangible or intangible, exactly as it is. All these natures have always carried out their functions purely and eternally. The wise man has realized this and is free from all conditioned things, including suffering. The wise man understands that this aspect of nature neither goes nor comes, arises nor ceases, is neither dark nor light, has neither merit nor sin, good nor bad, wholesome nor unwholesome, and is devoid of assumptions. It exists in this manner at all times in every moment of consciousness. Wise individuals like Buddha have imparted this wisdom to the world. Those who listen with their minds need not think or remember. Simply bow your mind and follow along. The mind will gradually come to understand on its own. It will generate knowledge by its very nature, as it is inherently inclined to learn. We have been learning by nature since birth. Much like a computer that processes information, our minds absorb experiences from the world around us from the moment we are born. They interpret all these sounds, smells, tastes, and sensations, processing them to gain understanding and evoke emotions and images. It comprehends the myriad inputs. The CPU processes data input from the keyboard, mouse clicks, and other sources. Similar to our minds, it begins to remember everything it sees, hears, touches, and experiences, then records, processes, and compares this with your emotions, imagination, and the sounds you hear, ultimately understanding that this is the image. This emotion is triggered by this image. This emotion is triggered by this sound. This is the meaning of this sound. This is the meaning of this image. This is the meaning of this emotion. This body is what we hold on to as our own. Our minds learn autonomously. They understand how to exist, cling to, and become immersed in it. This is the inherent state of creation. The wise man perceives thoughts, feelings, and emotions as natural when he understands the pure essence of Dharma. He recognizes them as mere expressions of nature's movements, reflecting reality as it is, and relies on these illusions to ripple and transmit from mind to mind among all living beings. Every living being has embraced this language. They depend on form, sight, hearing, smell, taste, touch, sound, imagination, emotional understanding, and sensory experience. Assume that a self exists that knows. Living beings rely on this fabrication, this abstraction, to grasp these illusions. Wise individuals also depend on this fictitious language, which is an illusion, to communicate pure knowledge to living beings for their understanding. A person with limited wisdom relies on thoughts, emotions, and perceptions, striving to think, understand, and remember, while attempting to grasp concepts beyond mere thoughts. He will be slow and will take time to attain the Dharma. In contrast, the wise listen with their minds, using this sound as if it were a flashlight guiding them to the tunnel's entrance. They do not cling to the sound, the image, the emotion, or the state of knowing. They simply follow their minds until their understanding begins to deepen. There was a stirring within me. Tears streamed down my face, and I was deeply moved by the realization that this was a construct of thoughts. Did everything stem from this very thought? Tears streamed down as I continued to listen, listening consistently, every day, all the time, until the sound of the Master's Dharma echoed in my mind ceaselessly. I witnessed the marvel of my mind being awake constantly, knowing perpetually, perceiving nature, understanding nature, thinking, imagining, and feeling endlessly. Until he fully understood that it achieved all of this independently. The mind knows by its very nature. Tears fell. The mind became bright and clear, and it recognized its freedom. It feels as though we have escaped this sound. It acknowledges that this sound does not define us. It has fled from thoughts, fled from imagination, fled from emotions, fled from this state of awareness, fled from the attachments we once held. Tears streamed down my face. I felt in my heart that ignorance had crumbled away from my mind. It has been released and is now free. I observed the five aggregates functioning continuously, yet my mind remained unbound. The mind has no form, no self. It is an element of origin that embodies pure emptiness, freedom, and independence. It resembles the pure emptiness that lies before us. Air and oxygen all exist within this pure emptiness. This air moves and generates a tornado. It ripples, alters, changes, and destroys all things. However, it cannot affect the pure emptiness. All fabrications and ripples arise from pure emptiness. This is the kind of knowledge that those enlightened in the Dharma, such as the Buddha, come to realize. Upon enlightenment, they employ this understanding, known as the unconditioned, the inconceivable Dharma, knowledge that should not be contemplated, that does not rely on thought, and is simply the truth recognized. Bend your mind to follow, and use your mind to listen. The Dharma that guides the path to nirvana is one that requires the mind to listen, employing it to hear, rather than using your thoughts to think, remember, or embellish. It is a matter of transmission from mind to mind. Therefore, all of us, children, the elderly, the disabled, women, and men, possess minds. Dharma already resides within my mind. Each of us can attain Dharma if we are awake and aware within, perceiving the state of knowing and the state of thinking as nature, not as ourselves. Because we are empty, pure, and clear elements, the elements of nature, the elements of nirvana that we all inherently possess. This element of nature neither departs nor arrives, does not arise nor cease, and is free from all fabrications. It is unconditioned. Thus, this Dharma is completely free from fabrications. Please use your mind to listen. Today, let us conclude here. May all of us who have made a steadfast vow not to be reborn, who have the nirvana as our aim, who have anatta as our sanctuary, may we all understand the Dharma and achieve the Dharma without delay, everyone. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. May all Buddhas be my witness. From this moment forward, I will diligently listen to this Dharma. I will be awake within. I will perceive thoughts, emotions, and sensations as natural, not us, not ours. I will not cling to any sensations. I will not be reborn. This life will be my last. Once I have realized the Dharma, I will teach my children, grandchildren, and acquaintances to be awake within. I will not cling to thoughts or emotions until the end of my life. This is a tribute to Buddha. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. If you are interested in Dharma, awakening, and observing the mind to escape suffering through knowledge, thank you for watching.